Hello guys, good evening. Today being 16th of July, Thursday, 2026. I will be paying attention to NASDAQ, just do analysis on NASDAQ and tell you guys what I see and my thoughts on it. But before I talk about that, I also want to give a reference to a YouTube video I did concerning the bullishness of NASDAQ, and that was on the 18th of April. So if you pay attention, if you have watched the video, you can actually see that I talked about it sweeping this was low, returning back to the opening price of this year, and go for the target of 2025 high, right? But I didn't say it would keep on going high, right? The only thing was to focus on this target, which is this high right here. And if you go through the video, you just see 20 minutes video, so you can just go through it and you actually see everything that I explained about it right there. So now I'm going to be looking at it currently today, and I'll tell you guys what I see right here. So I kind of like see like a distribution phase going on the Nasdaq. So I'll be expecting it to be on a drawdown for some time for the closes. So the reason why I will be looking at that way is because I'm seeing it as an overbought. All right, and me okay, you need to just stay on FX here and focusing on the quarters that we have. Right, we are having 4 quarters in a year, which is 3 months each. Right, so all right, let's do the analysis here. So this year started. We have 1, 2, 3. We're currently at the third quarter, right? So this is our first quarter of the year, and then we now have the second quarter. All right, and we're currently on the third quarter, right? And the Nasdaq has been massively bullish, right? We have not seen any bearish structure on the Nasdaq. And then looking at it currently, we can tell that this is an old block right here. This is like the origin of the bullishness that happened on the second quarter. So the first quarter opened, it sold down a little and took out previous 3 months low and trading into the fair value gap that was there. So it balanced an inefficiency and then traded higher the second quarter, breaking this high right here. Also taking the equal highs that we have right here. So this right here is another block, or you can call it a demand zone, because that is the sell candle before the impulsive move to the upside, maintaining the bullish structure. So now what am I looking at? I'm currently looking at seeing the Nasdaq return back to the block and maintain the bullishness for maintain the bullish move, right? So that is me saying I'm expecting a pullback, not Nasdaq going bearish, right? I'm expecting a pullback, and this is for a long term. So now that we are on the second quarter, let's focus our eyes on previous 3 months high and previous 3 months low. That will be the range that we will be dealing with. So let me just take off all of this. That will be the range that we'll be dealing with, because you can actually see that we are inside that previous 3 months candle. And then the color to red, right? So that when we run down to lower time frame, you can easily identify that. All right. So I want you guys to have a clear understanding on how candles is formed in a year. When it comes to a yearly price delivery or price candle, we pay attention to which quarter is actually going to give us the high of the year and which quarter is giving us the low of the year, right? It could be the first quarter or the second quarter or the third quarter or the fourth quarter. So I will give an example of that by looking at 2025 price delivery, and I've been successfully predicting the price movement on NASDAQ for a long time. I also did 2022, right, from this point, right? So if you go through my YouTube channel, you actually see it right here. So let me give you an example of what I meant by which quarter is giving us the high and the low of the candle for the year. So if we go down to the Gemos time frame, which is by the quarter, right? Remember, this is 2025 high and this is 2025 low. You can actually see that this low was formed on April, which is what? The second quarter. We have the first quarter has January, February, March. This is this right here, this bearish candle, the first quarter, right? Then the second quarter opened and we swept that previous quarter low and then giving us a bullish move. And then the last quarter gave us the high. So the second quarter was the low and the last quarter was the high of the year of 2025. So with that, you can now go down to your lower time frame to look for an analysis, and you get to see an entry. You can actually see how clean it is right here, starting now from when it's sold off from this fair value gap, and then price return to the area of supply responsible to push the price lower right here. Came back because the low. This is a high. This is a low, and we value the area of supply, and then maintained that bullishness. You can actually see there was no bearish movement in right here, and also this is a range high, this is a range low. This range low swept this previous liquidity low right there. So yeah, so with that understanding, we can now move over to this year, 2026, and this is January, right? This is January, so we're gonna switch this back to back. So this year, 2026, we have January give us a high, it traded lower, right? To be drawn to this liquidity. And I also made mention of previous most low. So after that, you actually see that we traded back to what was responsible to take this liquidity. And remember from the teachings I've done, even those in the mentorship or those that got the course, I always make mention of it. Then whenever we have a buy stop or a sell stop, which is the external high and the external low being taken out, we're looking for the inefficiency or the old block responsible to take that. Right, so that is the last swing point responsible for that, and which is what we have right here. Price traded into it. We are expecting it to sell, but it failed to sell from here and then breaks it. So that tells you that it's trying to go bullish and will be drawn to the previous month high. So January traded lower. The whole of first quarter traded lower to be drawn to this liquidity. The second quarter opened and showed a massive impulse, massive bullishness upwards, and so this is where we close at for the second quarter right here. So you can actually see that massive inefficiency that we're having right here. So that should tell you that it will get to a point where the market would like to come back and balance this area of inefficiency and show reaction from there, because that inefficiency is what was responsible to take this high. So now the third quarter opened. We can now go to our daily time frame and forward time frame. So this is what I have eyes on, since we are looking at this daily time frame, and I'm looking at the daily range at which we are, which is this swing high and this swing low. So we have this high, we have this low, price traded higher, and we will be expecting it to go take this high, right? So then it showed the failure, and price starts to sell lower. Now, looking at this range, I can tell that there is no area of inefficiency that the price will likely buy from, right? So you could tell that it wants to now go for sell stop. So most people will be looking at this, in which price reacted here, in which it has to, because it needs to balance the inefficiency here. But this is not a valid area for an entry because it did not take this high. It took out an internal liquidity, but did not take out an external liquidity. So there is no structural break. All right, so this is like a range. So price failed, came back to inefficiency, traded higher to fill up an opposing inefficiency, and then show the sign to sell from there. So now the question is how will the third and the fourth quarter behave, right? How will the third and fourth quarter trade? So we'll be seeing that from a daily time frame, because all I can see now is something interesting, and that is this high right here. And I can see that we have an inefficiency going on right here. We can actually see that massive drawdown right here. And what I'm trying to pay attention to is for it to be drawn to this low. So once it takes that low, I'll be looking at this because this is an area of demand that is being formed right here. So once the market traded lower takes that low, I'll be expecting a return to this inefficiency being created and trade into that demand zone, sorry, the supply zone. And we'll be expecting a confirmation on the lower time frame, which is the 1 hour time frame where the market violates a demand zone, because the price will trade into that in a bullish movement, creating areas of bullish order block or a demand zone. And in order to violate that area, right, it is going to act as an opposing area of entry. So once that demand fails, and we now have a structural break on the 1 hour time frame, then I will be looking for shorts on NASDAQ for the third quarter. Um, some area of supply that was created right there with inefficiency. So we now expect price to return to that and we take a short. All right. So once I take a short, what I'm targeting would be the areas of inefficiency that we have throughout the second quarter, which is right here. So this doesn't mean that Nasdaq has flourished, right? But we are having a drawdown. So I will now be going back to that daily 3 months time frame, and we just mark out that demand zone that we have right here. So we will get to see how this third quarter is going to trade. But I'm expecting it to fill up this inefficiency. And if we eventually get to this demand zone, I'll be looking for a buy order, but that would be from next year or the fourth quarter, right? Which is the last quarter of the year. So we have traded out of the opening price. So that means if I eventually get my confirmation for the short for Nasdaq on the third quarter, then I'm targeting to take profit on the opening price of 2026, right? Because around the opening price, we have inefficiency below this liquidity that was taken out. So from next week or from next month, that will be when I'll be paying attention to this low and this area of supply in my short. So let me get to listen to your own thoughts. What do you think on Nasdaq? Are you expecting a pullback and seeing this as a distribution phase for Nasdaq to trade downwards lower to the opening price or this high right here? Or are you still going to look for short once price? Sorry, are you going to look for a continuation of the bullishness once price takes this liquidity? So yeah, let's see your thoughts because yeah, it also makes sense because this is previous month's low. So we can tell that this month opened and not interested to go for previous month high, but wants to go for previous month low. So once it gets to that previous month low, we'll see how far it's going to trade to fill up inefficiency, and then I'll be looking for a continuation to go bullish on Nasdaq. And that will also have a reaction to the stock market, right? The stock market will also react to that. So the US stock, yeah. So let's see how it goes, right? We are overall bullish, right? So we're looking for a counter trade to trade for the month down to inefficiency, right? And then the fourth quarter, right? Or this same third quarter could maintain, give us a low, and then the next quarter we continue bullish. So we don't know yet until we actually see how it forms that structure. But I can actually tell that this month wants to be drawn to previous month low, and we'll be looking at that from confirmation from this interesting structure that was printed right here. So if we go down to the 4 hour time frame, we can actually see how the 4 hour time frame looks like. All right, so once market trades into this area from the daily time frame, I'll be looking for a confirmation on the 1 hour time frame to go for short. And yeah, this previous month low is actually a target, is a draw to liquidity. So yeah, share your ideas, share your thoughts. See you guys next time, next week. Take care, Mr.